Hello, investors and traders, and welcome to this episode of Technical Tuesday, where today we're going to be talking about how to identify and trade dojis and spinning tops. If you've been following along with the Technical Tuesday videos, you'll know that I have 4 favorite candle patterns, and the dojis and spinning tops are part of that group of my favorites because it gives you some indications when the pivot points are about to show up. Before we get into the details of dojis and spinning tops, let's do a quick review talking about the body of the candle. The body is the rectangle part of the candle that is colored either green or red. Back in the day before computers, the red candles were just black ink, and the green candles were just opened frames, more or less, of rectangle in black ink. So they were more or less white and black. And the white ones were called open candles. The black ones were called closed candles. But with the advancement of technology, we have the pleasure of looking at green and red to tell us who's in control of the price. Now, a basic candle such as this gives you 4 data points. The bottom of a green rectangle or body is telling us that the price opened on the bottom of that candle, and by the end of the day, it closed higher. Hence the reason why it's green. If the close is higher than the opening, that means the buyers are in control of the price of that stock. And the vertical lines are the shadows. Some people call them wicks. That's actually incorrect. If you read some of the old manuals on candle charts, they're known as shadows. But many people look at the candle and say, why not call it a wick? Don't candles have wicks? I understand that. But we're going to stick to the way the traditional candles were read. Now, the shadow on top of the candle basically gives us the highest price of the day, where the lower part of the shadow gives us the lowest price of the day. And the only difference between a red candle and a green candle is that the closing price on a red candle is lower than the opening price. A green candle has the closing price higher than the opening price. That's it. But the length of the body gives us indications of how motivated the buyers or the sellers are. The longer the candle, the more motivated. The shorter the candle, well, not very motivated. And the same applies for the red candles. It does not matter. There are different types and shapes of candles. There are no 2 candles that are exactly the same, like snowflakes, I imagine. But the long candle right here that has absolutely no shadow is the most bullish. That's known as a bullish Marabuzzo. The long red candle with no shadows is known as a bearish Marabuzzo. They are the most extreme bullish and bearish signals because the price just opened at one end of the candle and closed at the other. It didn't have a high or low. It just kept going. And so the different sizes of the bodies give us the more or less the motivation level. And we're going to be focusing on the spinning top, which is a small body candle. I'm going to review that. Doesn't matter what color, green or red. And the doji, which has no body whatsoever. Let's get to the spinning top first. The spinning top is a small body candle. Again, it does not matter what color it is. It's the fact that it's a small body, and the shadows vary. You could have spinning tops with short shadows. It doesn't matter if there's a longer shadow on top, longer shadow on the bottom, unless you're looking at hammers and shooting stars. We'll get to that in another video. But it's a sign of indecision. Basically, it's telling us, well, there's no real motivation here on this day, but it's the position of the small body that gives us the indication that there could possibly be a pivot point forming. Now, these vertical lines just represent the previous up or down leg. And so the body here that you see is a small body that is at the end of a downward leg. And that's telling us, again, a sign of indecision that the sellers are running out of momentum. And then usually, but not always, usually you will see a pivot forming after the spinning top shows up. If a spinning top shows up at the end of an upward leg like we see here, then there's a greater chance that there is most likely going to be a pivot in the days that follow. Sometimes they show up exactly at the high or the low. Other times they're within one candle of the low or the high. Now the dojis are very similar. The doji is also a sign of indecision, but the big difference here is that it does not have a body to it. It's just a horizontal line that represents the fact that the opening and the closing price were exactly the same. The doji on the left is more or less a typical doji that you're going to see. It looks like a cross. And then they have different names for dojis that have long shadows. They'll call this one on the right a long-legged doji. Sometimes they're gravestone dojis. You may have heard of that before. But again, it's still a sign of indecision. And those two are found at the end of up and down legs. Here you have a down leg, and just like the spinning top, a doji shows up. I love dojis because they're easy to identify on the chart. On the right, you can see the up leg, noted in green, is followed by a doji, and usually that results in lower prices, or at least the beginning of a pivot point. And so let's take a look at what that would look like on an actual chart. Here I'm using Meta Platforms Inc. as the example, and highlighting, you could see that at the end of this down leg right here, what do we have? Right there is a spinning top. Can you see it? Now, I tell our members all the time, go out and practice. Look at charts over and over again. Pick one day being bullish engulfings. The next day could be hammers. The next day could be dojis or spinning tops. You pick the day and look at 10, maybe 20 ticker symbols. It does not take very long to do that. And then once you get the hang of it, it'll just pop right out for you. In this area right here, can you see that one? That is a doji, and it's at the end of an upward leg. What happened the day after? We had a red candle right there. It pivoted lower. At the very bottom here, you could see another doji found at the end of a downward leg right there. And so when you put these all together, it helps you at least identify that there's a chance of a pivot forming. Now, in addition to the candle shape and size of the body itself, you will start to look at the oscillators down below. And that will help you quite a bit when you start learning how to read the charts. You can see on this side over here, as I scroll to the right, you could see we have a long body candle followed by a spinning top, long body, normal candle. Then all of a sudden, these spinning tops start to show up over here. But look what's happening down below. The CCI is already starting to pivot, and it's about to show a sell signal. Let's look at Google, also known as Alphabet Inc. And you can see in this area right here, downward leg, followed by what? That is a spinning top. Down below, you can see the CCI starting to pivot up, telling us that the pivot is about to form. And that's exactly what happened. Right here, as I magnify that for you, there is a doji. Here is a doji. Now, again, this is the high right here, but the doji forms in the middle of this grouping of candles here. What happened? It dropped. And it doesn't look like much, that little bit of a drop right there, but it dropped from 202 down in a couple of days. It dropped very close to 190. So you had almost $12 of a drop in price. And for an option trader especially, that means quite a bit. You can make a lot of money with a stock that's moving $10 or $20. And so if you go back and look at a weekly chart, it applies in the same exact way. You look at the candles, you look at the shape of the body, the length of the shadows, and you can see here is a long body candle, very motivated buyers. The motivation level is dropping. See the shorter body, followed by what? A spinning top, followed by another spinning top. See, green and red doesn't really matter. It's the size of the body. And then what happens? The stock starts to pivot lower. And for you investors out there, if you want to go back and look at a monthly chart, you could do the same exact thing. If you see long shadow, and then all of a sudden you start to see dojis and spinning tops on a monthly chart, doesn't mean you have to sell it right away, but if you're using stop loss orders, every time a small body candle such as this shows up, or a spinning top shows up like this, what are you doing with your stop? You're moving it up to trail your stop to protect any profits that you might have. They work much better on daily charts, but like I said, you could also use the weekly, and investors could use the monthly candles. Hope you liked this video. Very short and sweet. If you like the content, please subscribe, comment, hit the like button. You know how to do all those things. That really helps our videos get out, and the algorithm picks it up, throws it on the menu, and we get a lot more eyeballs on these videos. And as we continue to teach the general public how to read charts, guess what happens? As the masses learn how to read the signals, more and more people are now driving the price as a result of that signal. In other words, what happens is the signals become more accurate as more and more people follow those signals to trade. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. So long.